we are with another episode of the Lisbon Panther podcast. Last week we had a chance to listen to some excited elementary students tell you about the books they've received from the year of the book. I hope you enjoyed listening. Again, we are always looking for feedback or even some ideas for future podcasts. But with that, I'm Amy Wall and I'm your guest host for today. Before we get started with today's show, it's time for the Panther Roundup. What's been going on at LRS? The Panther Roundup is where we share what's going on at school and our area. One of the biggest events from last week was that we finally got to have Winter Carnival. Why don't you tell us about it, Rachel?
So I think everyone enjoyed Winter Carnival this year. What did people like about Winter Carnival? What was your favorite activities?
Soccer.
Doing the minute to win it was actually really fun.
I like doing the class runner.
Yeah, I think our class especially liked doing the class runner. Oh, and we are thinking of having a spring carnival or spring fever reliever, but it probably won't happen.
This week we have a half day on Friday for staff development. In the morning, juniors will be taking SATs. Believe it or not, varsity baseball and softball starts on Monday, March 21st. Remember, if you know of any local events that our listeners might be interested in, you can reply in the comments. And now, back to today's episode. I'll let today's guests introduce themselves and tell us what grade they are in.
I'm Piper Blodgett, and I am in 11th grade.
I am Darren, and I am in 10th grade. Yeah.
I'm Malachi, and I'm in 10th grade.
I'm Emily Papnick, and I'm in 10th grade.
I'm Haley Wheeler, and I'm in 10th grade.
I'm Haley Kavanaugh, and I'm in 10th grade.
I'm Rachel Guzman, and I'm in 10th grade.
Today, we'll be discussing banned books. I'll be asking different questions to my classmates, and they'll be giving their opinions. Lots of people try to get books banned because it offends them or what they believe in. Have you ever been offended by a book? Why? If you haven't been offended by a book, why do you think people get offended? Do you think others would agree with you? Piper, what do you think?
So I've never been personally offended by a book, and I feel like if a book offends you on like a personal or religious level, don't let your kids read it, but don't try and take it out of like a library, if that makes any sense.
Rachel, what about you?
I have never been offended by a book, but I think when people are offended by books, they want to try to push what they believe in on other people.
What, if anything, can be learned from reading a book that has content which some people find offensive? Some examples of these kind of books are To Kill a Mockingbird and Of Mice and Men. Can the book be viewed as a history lesson in terms of the values of a given period? An example of poor choices that lead to poor outcomes. A lesson in flawed human beings overcoming challenges and adversity in life. Piper?
Because flawed human beings are flawed, they're obviously going to have traits or just little quirks or flaws that might make them very dislikable. And a lot of people take that dislikable character and run with how this book shouldn't be read by like younger audiences because this character does bad things. But that's like the lesson you're supposed to be taking away, is that you shouldn't do what this character did, you shouldn't be how this character was, and they're not exactly someone to admire or look up to.
I believe that you can learn anything from really anything in life. Like, even walking down the road, you can learn something. So why can't you learn something from a book?
You can also learn about like history events and different cultures by reading some of these books.
Does anybody else want to add?
I think if we do ban books, though, it can be trying to forget about what happened in the past and pretend that it didn't happen, but it did.
Like that school district who banned the book Mouse because it was too dark, despite it being a book teaching about the Holocaust, which is not the best idea of a book to ban.
Books like To Kill a Mockingbird and Of Mice and Men have strong representations of different kinds of people and culture. Do you think it's important to have books that depict other cultures and people who don't represent you? Why or why not?
It is really, really important to see different cultures and different types of people in the media you consume, especially at like a younger age. Because when you're young, even if you don't really understand the differences, it'll help make sure that you don't think of someone having like a different skin color as weird or wrong. And seeing different cultures can also help people realize that there's not one correct way to do things. And that depending on the culture you grew up in, the way you see a issue or something is going to be completely different. And books, especially for younger audiences, can help kids learn this.
Yeah, I think it is important to represent different cultures. Just like you want to, you have to be like respectful and like make sure that information you say about it is correct.
Accurate representation is very useful.
I think it's important to help prevent bullying and things. If there's different cultures and kids don't understand them, they can be made to practice and,
Does anybody else want to add?
Yeah. A lot of kids who are either immigrants or first-gen Americans will often tell stories of how they got bullied really bad as kids because their food was considered weird or smelly or disgusting, simply because it was from a different culture. And preventing that is just really important.
Under what circumstances, if any, should a book be removed from a school or public library?
Okay, so there are certain genres of books that aren't really, kid-friendly. And that would make sense to not like have in like a K-12 library or not be accessible by like elementary age kids. But they shouldn't be taken out of like a public library if they're, put in the right areas and stuff. And
I agree, because public libraries are for all ages.
Exactly.
So they should offer books for all ages.
Mm-hmm.
I would understand taking a book out of a school if it was like very explicit in an inappropriate way, and we don't want kids to be reading that for teenagers.
Yeah. There are certain like darker topics that can be covered in slightly more kid-friendly ways. But at the same time, there are certain topics that you do learn about in school that are very hard to like make kid-friendly. And if those books are being pulled out of schools, it doesn't make sense because you're just going to be teaching a extremely watered down version of that historical event, which is not a good thing.
I wasn't talking about just historical events. I was thinking more of just like fiction books or sexual.
Yeah, those ones too.
I don't really think any books should be banned from public libraries, but like maybe from like elementary libraries, they shouldn't have like all books.
Anybody else want to add? Okay. Do you think banning books will make them more popular? Why or why not? Will students be able to find other ways to access these books?
If someone really wants something, they're going to find a way to get it. And that's just kind of a universal in a lot of cases. And when you tell someone that they can't read or have or see something, it gives it a little bit of a forbidden taste to it. So they want it even more. And there are some bookstores that set up like banned book selections. I know one of my favorites does.
Yeah, because banning books definitely makes them harder to find, which is why a lot of bookstores have those sections. So if people want to read them, it makes it easier for them.
Mm-hmm.
I also think banning books can, like having a name of a book on like a list or something can make it more known to people and make people be like, ooh, what's that? I want to read that.
Yeah, like Harry Potter's been challenged or banned a lot, and that's a really popular book series for other reasons, though.
A lot of banned books you can find on like online websites. A lot of kids will find out about these books and be like, wow, I want to read this because our teachers aren't letting us read it in school and my other friends are at their school. So they'll go online and read the books on there. And I feel like banned books are more popular to kids in high school than books that we normally read in English class are.
Many school libraries require parental permission for an elementary or middle school student to read a book in the high school section of the library. What do you believe is the difference between banning a book and restricting access to a book? For example, requiring parental permission.
So it's like one thing if you have like a first grader who's trying to read some really gory high school novel and you're restricting access. That makes sense. That's logical. If it's like a middle schooler trying to get a book from the library that contains like a few swears in it, that's a bit different. Because I know for a fact that I was reading high school books when I was in middle school, with or without permission.
I remember when I was in 5th or 6th grade, I wanted to read an Agatha Christie book, and I had to have my mom sign a form for me to be able to check it out. Do you believe it is the parents' responsibility to help their children confront uncomfortable situations and expose them to other experiences that are not their own? If not, do you believe that it is the school's responsibility, or is it both?
It's definitely both because people should be very well rounded with different situations. Even like earlier, we talked about culture. There is not just one culture in America. We are not the only culture that exists. There are several religions, and I think people should be very well rounded to different experiences and different cultures. So in life, when we are no longer with our parents or in school, we will know how to deal with these situations.
I believe it is mostly the parents' responsibility to expose their children to situations and stuff, but I think part of school is being with other people and learning and being exposed to new environments.
Mm-hmm. And then, like, all of the history classes that you're supposed to take in, like, high school and stuff are also definitely going to be exposing, high schoolers to some of the more uncomfortable truths of the world, especially if you look at it through, like, a historical lens and stuff like that.
I definitely think that schools should teach students about other cultures and religions and stuff like that, but parents should be the ones that really like get them to understand it more. Like schools touch up on it and show movies or read books, but parents should be the ones that their kids go to and be like, oh, what is this about? What is that about? Really, it's more the parents' job to teach the children about other cultures and religions.
I agree, because it's really the parents that set an example for their kids, and so they should be one of the ones encouraging their kids to read different books and to expand their knowledge.
I think it's both the school and parents' responsibility to like teach their kids about new things.
Does anybody else want to add?
I think it's a parent's responsibility because you're a lot more comfortable with your parents, and but in the end, I feel like school should really cement your understanding and should really expose you more because school is a very diverse place, and I feel like if you go to a bigger public school, then you're exposed to a lot more religions, beliefs, and other situations, but like I said, at home, your parents really, you're in a way more comfortable environment, and I feel like it's more their responsibility to show you these uncomfortable situations because, like I said, you're in a way more comfortable environment.
I think it's the parents' responsibility, but school does help a lot. Like being in school with like kids your own age, like gets you in a lot of different situations. But if the parent sees that the kid isn't like learning how to do it, they should.
Okay. Do you think parents should have the power to keep students in their community from reading books?
I don't think that parents should be able to ban books from libraries or from other students from learning about different cultures or different situations, because if they don't want their family members to read the book, then don't have them read it. You're just taking away education and possibly joy from other people.
I agree. Parents shouldn't be stopping other students from reading certain books.
Yeah, well, it's your right to tell your kid whether or not they can read a certain book. You don't have the right to go to a completely random different kid and go, you can't read that. I don't like that book. I think that book is bad. Because they're not your kid. You are not their guardian. And if you're trying to do that to the entire school or library, that says more about you than it does the book. Because if no one else has complained, what about the book upsets you?
Does anybody else want to add?
I think that parents should be able to stop their own kids from reading a book, but I don't think they can stop other kids from reading it.
Okay. Finally, considering your answers to the previous questions, do you think it is morally right for communities to ban books and restrict students from reading certain books?
Restrictions can be okay in very specific situations. Banning, on the other hand, isn't. Because, again, some books, they're not even that morally objectable, and morals depend on the person. So some families have like a really huge thing against Harry Potter because it has magic in it. And some families don't. Some of them are like, this is a moral issue, and other people are like, it's fantasy. Morals depend on the person.
I don't think it's right to ban books, especially because a lot of books are based on history and stuff that happened before most of our time. So students should have that right to be able to figure out what was going on like last century and why we shouldn't go through that again. See, like if it's an elementary like library, I don't think the book should necessarily be banned, but maybe a more like age appropriate type of book.
In public libraries, I don't think any book should be banned, but if we're thinking about schools, I think some books for like elementary schools and stuff maybe shouldn't be in libraries, but I think high school students should be able to read as they choose.
Yeah, I don't think any should be banned, but I think in some places they should be restricted.
Going back to what Haley said, I agree, because if students don't read about the mistakes made in the past, they might repeat them.
If we don't learn about our history, we are doomed to repeat it.
Does anybody else want to add?
Yeah, I don't think it's right to ban a book because, like, if a person doesn't want to read the book, then they don't have to read the book. But why would they ban it and ruin it for the rest of the people?
All right. I'd like to thank everyone for being on the Panther podcast. Next week's episode will be all about the students in the distant learning program. But with that, my name's Amy. I'm glad you could join us, and thanks for listening to today's episode.
Goodbye!